And welcome to the Bruins Beat, presented by Prizepicks. Use our promo code CLNS to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5. And of course, make sure to subscribe to CLNS Media. Subscribe to us. Subscribe to Bruins Ringside on YouTube. Lots of great stuff. Today isn't live, but of course, you can always interact with us. We do go live quite a bit. And even when we don't, you get notified when a video drops. You get to be one of the first to comment and say something really nice to us, which is always great. And of course, you can always subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. Apple, Spotify, Podbean for Bruins Beat, Poke the Bear, or Pucks with Haggs. And lots of other great stuff at CLNS too. Celtics All Access, Patriots Press Pass. Go check them out. Today's a solo day. But the tiers are back. And Connor's in, traveling the world. He did a podcast from East Asia, which, that's real. He loves you. He clearly loves you if he's doing it on vacation like that. So I give him a lot of props. Go check out that episode of Poke the Bear. But I figure it's summer and I want to start doing some different kinds of videos. I want to do some different kinds of things, explore some different topics over the next couple of months and consistently. But today I felt it's a good time because I didn't get to do this around July 1. And July 1, obviously, is the big free agency day. And I wanted to go back and look at Don Sweeney's history of free agent signings, the best and the worst. And you know how I'm doing this. You already know. It's tiers time, baby. It is time for tiers, which is my favorite. This is the best investment I've ever made. I love it, and I hope you guys do too. Let me know how you feel about it. So obviously there are more than just these 15 signings since Don Sweeney took over in 2015. But I chose the big ones. I chose the notable ones, names that a casual fan would know, names that everyone would know. Obviously, you guys, if you listen to this, are not casuals. I'm just saying, stopped a person on the street and said, "Do you know Craig Smith?" They'd be like, "Yes, I do know Craig Smith." So that's where I was coming from with this. And we'll add in some different tiers. I wanted to just start, S tier being the best of the best. A, B, C, D. We'll see if there's any Fs. We'll see if we want to add any F tiers to this because we may have to do that. So we'll start in a fun area. We'll start with Riley Nash. Riley Nash signed in 2016, 2 years times $900,000 per. So a total contract was $1.8 million. Former early pick in the draft who'd kind of been a guy that was looked at sort of in the middle. Or sort of in the bottom of a lineup. That first season in 2016-17, 17 points in 81 games. Didn't do a whole heck of a lot, but again, played most of the games for a pretty young team. Dude turned it up in 2017-18. Dude found a different level. I went back and looked. Patrice Bergeron was out for, I think, 13 games in early March. Nash stepped up in between Pastrnak and Marchand and put up 5 goals and 12 points in 11 games. Finished the season with a career high 41 points. Ended up getting paid the next season by Columbus. Didn't really do a heck of a lot after that, but incredible value for what they signed him at. He's an A tier. Riley Nash is an A. I mean, Riley Nash should have his own tier, but we're going to go with A tier for Riley Nash. Then we got Jaroslav Halak. Jaroslav Halak is up next. And it's funny, he was signed in 2018, 2 years times 2.75 mil. So it was a $5.5 million contract total. He was sort of like a former starter who, was also a backup or who kind of became a high-end backup. This was around when the Bruins realized that they needed a good backup for Tuukka Rask, so Rask could have more rest. And this paid instant dividends. That first season in 18-19, 22-11-4 over 37 starts, a .922 save percentage, and a 2.34 goals against average. Again, they go to the final that year, and Halak was sort of a unsung hero because he'd played so much during the season. Rask had historically played so many games that Rask finally had a season in which he wasn't, sort of ridden into the ground. And I thought the other interesting thing about this was he pushed Rask throughout that season. I remember this was early on. I think it was right before I got Bruins Beat. There was a real case for Halak starting the Winter Classic over Rask at Notre Dame, which was wild. Rask obviously started and won the game, but still the value of Halak, again, 18-6-6 in 2019-20. They won, him and Rask won the Jennings. For that contract, I know things sort of ended where Swayman overtook him, but for that deal, dude, that's an A. Like, that's a perfect signing. Like, does the job and then some. I know some people might say him and Rask is too expensive in net, but I mean, again, they're one game away from winning a cup with those two in net. So I can't really be too angry at that. Matt Beleskey up next. Matt Beleskey up next. Everybody talks about the 2015 draft, and rightfully so, but I don't think we talk enough about the 2015 free agency move here for Matt Beleskey. 5 years times 3.8 million, $19 million contract total. 3.8 million doesn't seem crazy now. I mean, Tanner Jeannot got 3.4 last offseason. So like, it's by today's standards, which is 11 years later, it's not like, that's not groundbreakingly bad, but at the time they looked at him as a top 6 left winger. He was coming off a career year in Anaheim with 22 goals in 65 games, had 8 goals in a crazy playoff run for them. I believe he played with Getzlaf and Perry on the left side. So he was coming off a crazy year, got paid, which good for him. First season actually here. I mean, he didn't pop 15 goals, 37 points in 80 games. Not great, but that was actually his career high in points. Fell off a cliff though after that. 16-17, 3 goals and 8 points in 49 games. He had a right knee injury that hampered him for a large portion of the season. And then in 17-18, completely fell off. No points in 14 games. They could not find a place to put him. Sent him to Providence, where he had 6 points in 21 games. His career, and it is sad to see this stuff, completely fell off. Included as a throw-in in the Rick Nash trade. The Bruins retained half of that deal. This is the F tier. I know that it's not fun, but this will be the F tier. He's going to be in that. I hate to say it, but there he goes. Oh, wait, I changed that. I changed the F tier to D. I take that back. Nope, we need to make this F tier, and we need to move him down there. So my apologies to Matt Beleskey for not correctly putting him in the F tier. And I don't blame him for this. Like, I think that's one of the things here where like, oh, you're ripping on the player. No, he signed a huge deal and made $19 million. Like, props to him. He should get that. But that's part of the deal with big contracts. And you get judged on whether or not you live up to it. He didn't come close to living up to it. Unfortunate for him, but yeah, F tier for Matt Beleskey. Then you have Craig Smith. Ooh, Craig Smith. I remember Conor Ryan was so adamant about Craig Smith in Boston. And it's easy to see why. He was this consistent, like 30 to 50 point getter in Nashville. And Connor had correctly identified him as someone that could come in. This was when the Bruins were missing like a top 6 right winger. They couldn't really get any depth in their middle 6. So this sort of seemed like the perfect veteran to do it with. First season in 2020, 2021, 13 goals, 32 points in 54 games. Did have a playoff overtime winner that in that playoff run. So that's not nothing. But then things sort of started to take a dip. 21-22, 16 goals, 36 points in 74 games. And then in 22-23, that was that stacked team. He could never really carve out a spot in the lineup or carve out real minutes. 4 goals and 10 points in 42 games. And he was ultimately included in the Washington deal for Garnet Hathaway and Dmitry Orlov. He was still like productive because those first 2 years were sort of in line with what he was doing before. I put him in the C tier, like S tier, good looking guy. No question about that. But C tier, like C tier production and living up to that contract. So I'll put Craig Smith in the C tier. Derek Forbort. Oh my God. Derek Forbort. This is a tough one. 2021 offseason. The Bruins made a flurry of 2021 moves. We'll get to some more in a bit. 3 times 3 for Derek Forbort. I remember, I think it was Elliot Friedman wrote the night before that they were, Derek Forbort to Boston looked legitimate. This was when they were still looking for like that Torrey Krug replacement. $9 million total on the deal. First year in 21-22, 4 goals and 10 assists in 76 games. 12 points in 54 games in 22-23, and then did really not much in 23-24, 4 assists in 35 games. He dealt with injury. But the biggest thing that hampered him was he was signed to basically be McAvoy's D partner on the left side, and it just never worked out. He didn't have the speed for it, and he couldn't hang with those, the high-end NHL, the high-end guys that McAvoy was going in against night in and night out. So Darla was adorable, but I think I'm going D tier for Derek Forbort. The D in Derek stands for D tier, which is unfortunate because funny dude, but just really didn't. I mean, 3 million's not insane, but for what they were hoping he was, and maybe that's on the Bruins, obviously, a D tier. Before we get into continuing this, quick word from our friends over at Prizepicks. It's a scorching sports summer, and you can make all your picks on Prizepicks. WNBA and baseball are heating up, and every game in soccer's biggest tournament is getting more important. With big tennis slams and major golf tournaments on the horizon, there's no better place for all your summer sports picks than Prizepicks, America's #1 sports picks app. I've been getting into soccer this summer. How can you not? And with the semifinals this week with France and Spain, England and Argentina, it's a star-studded final week, and there's no better place to hang out with all those teams than Prizepicks, America's #1 sports picks app. Prizepicks available in all 50 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prizepicks, America's #1 sports picks app. Linus Ullmark up next. Linus Ullmark, I don't think there's any question. S tier. How is he not? He won a Vezina. Like, I don't. I'm curious what people think about Linus going into the S tier. First season was pretty good. 26, 10-2, 39 starts, 917 save percentage, 245 goals against. I don't think anybody foresaw that next season, though. I was looking back at Ullmark's Vezina year. The numbers are insane. He went 46-1. Dude won 40 of his 47 games. 938 save percentage, 1.89 goals against, 48.5 goals saved above average. By far the best in that season. Ilya Sorokin was next with 13 fewer goals saved above average. Ullmark was insane. And obviously he was aided by Swayman. They won the Jennings together. But phenomenal year. Scored a goal that season. And then it was a great tandem with Swayman the next season again. Swayman sort of overtook him. And then they unloaded him. They traded him. And I think this is a deal that looks sort of pretty good in hindsight. Kastelik, a mainstay on your fourth line. Korpisalo, which not great. I'll give you that. And then the pick that became Dean Letourneau. This team needed a first-round pick desperately, and they got it. So again, Linus Ullmark, 2021, 4 years times $5 million per. You got a Vezina year out of him, and he became one of the better starters in the NHL. He was a guy that, like, to their credit, they identified with Buffalo as someone who had more to give, and he did. And that's why he's S tier for me. Linus Ullmark, S tier free agency signing. No question about that. Would people put him in A? I feel like there's like some people are wishy-washy on Ullmark because of the playoffs, but I still think $5 million per. This was, basically to replace Tuukka Rask. S tier signing. Nick Foligno is my next one. 2 years times $3.8 million, $7.6 million total. This was kind of pricey at the time. Longtime NHL vet, former captain, came to Boston at age 34. One of the best dudes, like one of the best guys. First year was rough, though. 2 goals, 13 points in 64 games. Looked slow off the jump. And we'll get to David Backes in a bit. They had recently, like within the year or two before this, gotten rid of Backes, and Foligno looked to sort of be of the similar type. Slow, good leader, good person, but just not able to make it work on the ice. But 22-23 carved out a real role for himself. 10 goals, 26 points in 60 games, was a good bottom 6 vet, a good leader. I don't think it's a coincidence that that I know he was not there in 23-24, but they could have used a guy like him in 24-25. Given how much, of a veteran drain they had the season after with 23-24. So much better in the second season. 3.8 million is a good amount. I'm going to go C tier for Foligno because he ended up being, a real leader for you. And I know that's cheesy, but that stuff does matter. So I go C tier for Nick Foligno. It's low C, though. He's getting like a 72, 73. I'm not overextending myself for that. Keeping it in 2021, Erik Haula, 2 years times 2.375 mil, a total of 4.75 million. Not a ton of money even at that time. I know it sounds like I'm talking years ago. This was now like 5 years, which is insane, but the cap has moved since then. That first season, 21-22, 18 goals, 44 points the year after Krejci left. Played everywhere, but really seemed to find a spot as a second line center. I think he's an A tier even just with that first season, but I give the Bruins credit for also flipping him for Pavel Zacha the following summer. Year left on a 2.375 million deal, and the Bruins took a swing, which again, as I've said all offseason, is the kind of deals they should be making now, where it's like, hey, Haula probably doesn't have much more to his growth at the time, and he didn't. Zacha did. They correctly made that assessment. So I'm going to go A tier, top of A tier for Erik Haula. I thought the way that year-long stretch with Boston was managed is an A tier for me. Tanner Jeannot. Tanner Jeannot's an interesting one. Interesting one for Tanner Jeannot. This was a deal when I first saw it, I was not a fan of. I did not like this. I think it's bad business signing bottom six guys to long-term deals. I just don't think that. I don't love that. I don't love that. I actually might scroll up so you guys can actually see. Yeah, there we go. Bingo. Okay, so you can see that for people watching on YouTube, you can actually see who's coming up next. Not Zadorov. I'm looking Nikita Zadorov. Jeannot, I thought actually overperformed what I thought he was going to be last season. He ended up being a fixture on your fourth line, which is really good. You'll take that. 5 times 3.4 million, though. 17 million over 5 years is a lot of money. I mean, again, I can't say enough good for him for signing this. First season, 6 goals, 22 points, 77 games. According to hockeystats.com, minus 0.3 WAR, which can happen to fourth liners, but that's not super great. I don't love that. In terms of age, he's 29. So he should still be in the prime. Should still have a couple more good years left. There was still that year in Nashville where he was fantastic and got traded to Tampa for all those picks. So I've always said, is that in there? Maybe. I don't know. He's in progress still, and I don't want to jump the gun. I feel like he's top of D tier. The contract's a lot. You have a lot of other bottom six guys, but he does have some value. Let's put him at the bottom of C tier. I feel like bottom of C tier for Jeannot is the right spot. 71, 70, that area, I think is Tanner Jeannot. Not a D, low C. Because again, if he pops this year or, continues to do what he did last year, I think you'll take it. It's just a little bit of money for that. Elias Lindholm. Elias Lindholm. Offseason of 2024, signed 7 times 7.75 million. The biggest deal that Don Sweeney's handed out in free agency by quite a bit. 54.25 million total. First season, 47 points in 82 games, 17 goals, 25-26. 17 goals as well, 48 points, 69 games. So actually his production was technically better this year. Back issues. He struggled to stick in the top 6. He doesn't work with David Pastrnak, which I think is, again, one of the reasons he came here was to potentially work with David Pastrnak. They've worked in teeny tiny spurts, but it mostly has not worked out. He's also not really a bottom 6 player either. Also, the other thing too, and this is really concerning, bottom 30 player in WAR last season at -0.8. -0.8. Bottom 30 in the league among players with at least 100 minutes played, according to hockeystats.com. That's not good. But I'm not going to put him in the F tier yet, because I think everyone mostly would do that. I'm not. I'm going to add a tier. We're going to add some tiers today. And if it's too big to fit on the screen, then so be it. But I'm going to put him, we're going to add a row below, and we're going to call it too early to tell, but not great tier. And that's where Elias Lindholm goes for me. That's where Elias Lindholm is going to go. And I know it makes it harder because now you guys can't see the players on the bottom, but that's life. That's where we're at right now. So not all that great. Do I think Elias Lindholm can get into that like B, C tier range? I mean, he just need to be more productive. Like, that's it. I mean, can you give the Bruins 55 points? And I still don't think he lives up to that deal, but if it's like 55 to 60 or something, I just don't see that. I think the back issues thing is real, and he looked slower towards the end of last season. I don't have a ton of faith in him. So that's where I'm at with Elias Lindholm. David Krejci. David Krejci's up next. People might not remember, didn't play the 21-22 season, and everybody thought he'd never come back. He did, came back on a 1x1 deal. So for $1 million total, the Bruins got 16 goals and 56 points in that torrid 22-23 season over 70 games. Lived up to it. I mean, it was your second line center, filled in behind Bergeron. Brutal way to go out, him and Bergeron, but still, like, for a final season. I think he was 36 at the time, coming after playing in Czechia. It's an A tier. I mean, S tier is for like the best of the best, but Krejci coming back was a cool story. Again, shame how it ended with how that season ended. But I give him an A. That's obviously a great signing for $1 million, but obviously he was not going to go anywhere else, I don't think, other than the Bruins. John Moore's up next. John Moore, who I was doing some research. I tweeted this out. I was doing some research, and the last 4 years, he's been a business economics major at UChicago. So congrats to him. That is awesome. There's a bunch of quotes in the story about how, he didn't want to just kick his feet up at like 32 years old. His career ended due to injuries, basically. I mean, his last bunch of years here were completely screwed because of injuries. Bruins got him at 28 years old. He was a somewhat stable bottom pairing D with like New Jersey. I get it. Like at a 2-year deal, I would have understood it for the Bruins, where it's like, here's a 28-year-old who's quick and can be a puck mover that maybe could grow with us. But they gave him a 5-year deal times 2.75 million, so it's 13.75 million total contract. That first season in 18-19, he was really injured towards the end of the season, ended up playing in Game 7 of the Cup final. 4 goals, 13 points, 61 games, and then things just sort of completely tumbled. He had a ton of injuries, 28 games lost to a shoulder injury early in the 2019-20 season. He needed reconstructive hip surgery in 2021. He ultimately was dealt in the package for Hampus Lindholm. Honestly, just felt bad for the guy because injuries really, really just ruined his career. But again, he's at UChicago now, so it seems like he's going to be someone that pops up in, I would assume, like with an NHL team working on the business side. As I said, a lot of great quotes in the story. I think it was by UChicago's newspaper, a student newspaper, about how he wants to do something else and he loves to learn and he likes to show his kids that you can learn forever. It's a D tier for Moore in terms of that contract. Happy for him that he's, on his feet and doing really well, it seems, at UChicago. But for that contract, that was a D tier contract. No question about that. David Backes. David Backes. Another one like Nick Foligno that was like a great dude, like a great guy, a veteran leader. But I mean, that signing smelt from the beginning. The fact that Ty Anderson always mentioned this, the fact that St. Louis didn't want to keep their captain, signed at age 32. After I was looking back at his stats in St. Louis, a steady like 45 to like 59 point career. He never eclipsed 60, but he was always right around there, like a good like second line, right wing or center. 2016-17, 17 goals and 38 points in 74 games. That was a dip in production. The next year was another dip in 17-18, 14 goals and 33 points in 57 games. And then in 18-19, 7 goals, 20 points in 70 games. Didn't play late in that series against the Blues, his former team. Like the fact that Cassidy didn't even use him in game 7 against the Blues, it tells you pretty much everything you need to know. And that was year 3 of that deal. And then in year 4, had 3 points in 16 games. He was ultimately waived in January and then traded with a first-round pick for Ondrej Kase. He was another one that dealt with a bunch of injuries. He had a lot of concussion issues. And then he had, I forgot about this, had diverticulitis in 2017-18. Someone that, like, I mean, you look at sort of the failing of that contract and if that money could have gone elsewhere. Could they have won the cup in 2019? Could they have been more successful in the playoffs in 17-18 and 19-20? They would have, maybe they keep a first round pick instead if they don't have to deal his contract. Did they get Charlie Coyle if Backes works out as like a third line center for them? It just didn't work. There was not really a spot for him. He was not a top 6 center. Was too slow. Like just the game had the speed had passed him by. Backes is a great example of like the prototypical 2000s American player, rugged, hard-nosed, good character, veteran leader, but not a ton of skill and not a ton of speed. And as the game changed, he could not change with it. So Backes, unfortunately, goes in the F tier. Hurts to say because great dude, but goes in the F tier, unfortunately. Friendly reminder, make sure to subscribe to Bruins Rinkside on YouTube. It is free. It's free to do. We're building up the channel more and more. We'll have a lot more live stuff. I'm also planning some different kind of content, not just tiers lists, but some other things I've got in the back pocket. You'll see over the next couple of months. Hopefully. Hopefully you'll see. And make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. Apple, Spotify, Podbean, for Bruins Beat, Poke the Bear, Pucks with Haggs. Doesn't matter. Wherever you get them, you can listen. And lots of other great stuff. CLNS 2, Celtics All Access, Patriots Press Pass. Go check them out. And so now we're down to 2. Nikita Zadorov. If you notice, we don't have a B tier player yet. I actually put him in the B tier. I put Nikita Zadorov in the B tier, and I'm going to guess I might get some pushback. Big physical defenseman signed in 2024, 6 times $5 million, so $30 million total. Again, a long deal. First season, 22 points in 81 games in that horrific 24-25 season. I said horrific, by the way, not terrific. The most mystifying stat of that whole season was he was somehow plus 25, which is bananas to me. Still was 0 WAR, according to hockeystats.com. And again, WAR's wins above replacement. 0 WAR, but still a plus 25, which is insane when you consider how bad that team was. And how he had to play such elevated minutes. 25-26, 2 goals, 22 points in 81 games. Actually a worse WAR, minus 0.71 WAR per hockeystats.com. It's interesting because, like, obviously the advanced analytics are not good when it comes to him, and that's in large part due to the penalties he takes. But for $5 million as like a stable, like second or third pairing left shot D, it's not awful. And like, again, like the Zadorov for Nurse stuff, like asking him to waive his no trade or his trade protections. Would you really have wanted Nurse for over $4 million more? Like, maybe Nurse gives you a little more offensively. Maybe he can play on the top pairing with McAvoy, but like, Zadorov doesn't have much more to give offensively, I don't think. But if he's just sort of a stable, or no, I don't want to say stable because he takes too many penalties, but like a reliable, like second or third pairing left shot D, $5 million is not that bad with where contracts are going. So I put him in the B tier. I put Nikita Zadorov in the B tier. I'm assuming that's going to be one that people are going to find pretty controversial. So I'm curious what you think. Would you put him in the C, D? Would you put him in too early to tell, not great? I don't think he's there because I think, again, this is where analytics and the eye test can be married, where like the advanced analytics aren't great, but I think watching him, Wasn't awful. I don't think he was as good in the second half as he was in the first half. And he makes some mind-numbing breakout passes and first passes, but does the job, and it's $5 million in today's game. I don't think that's horrific. So I'm going to put him in the B tier. I guess I maybe just described a C player, but yeah, he's kind of in line with Craig Smith, but I'm going to put Zadorov at like an 82, 83%. I think that's what I'd put him at so far. Again, still 4 years left on that deal. Finally, final player of this, Morgan Geekie. Morgan Geekie is my final player on this offseason of 2023. This was another player that Conor Ryan correctly was like, there's value here because his underlying metrics in Seattle, even in limited time, were really good. 2 years times $2 million per, $4 million total for 23 to 25. He's coming off, or at the time, coming out of Seattle. He was sub 30 points in both seasons. Came here, 33 goals in 2024-25, signs that long-term deal. And you think, all right, maybe like he's like, high 20s goal scorer. He just did that because the 24-25 Bruins fell off and weren't good. Nope, 39 goals this past year and went through some crazy droughts too. So could have had way more goals if he was more consistent. 68 points. I'm actually going to create a new tier for Morgan Geekie. I am going to put Morgan Geekie in the Bitcoin in 2010. That's what Morgan Geekie is to me. So that is how we will end it. Morgan Geekie in the Bitcoin in 2010 tier. That's what I like. I just, again, like finding Morgan Geekie the way that they did, $2 million per for 2 years. That is finding a $300 bill under the couch cushion. Like that is what you dream of in free agency. And it hits at the bigger point. You shouldn't be signing stars in free agency. You shouldn't be. You should be going for the Morgan Geekies of the world, the guys that your analytics department says, hey, they have way more value to give. There's more there. And let's get this guy on a short-term, short money deal. That's what they did with Geekie. Obviously, the Bruins and every team wishes they all could end up turning into Morgan Geekie. But I think Geekie's the perfect example, whether it's, going out and getting a depth bottom six player or getting someone with some upside. Morgan Geekie is the poster child for what a free agency move should look like in the year 2026. So that's the best and worst of Don Sweeney's free agent acquisitions. I was very happy that he didn't, again, I've said it a number of times already, very happy that he has not tried to do anything crazy with this free agency class in 2026. So that is very good news. So that is it. That's Bruins Beat. And there'll be another this week with more tiers. And it's a tiers list that I think you guys are going to love. It's going to be a good one down memory lane. And I'm doing it with someone who's very excited. Very, very excited about doing it. So it'll be a nice surprise for you guys later this week. Again, you can make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube on Bruins Rinkside. No Connor to outro, subscribe to the Globe and Boston.com. What I'll tell you is subscribe to New England Hockey Journal. I think that's a good idea. So that's Bruins Beat. That is Bruins Beat. I'm Evan Marinofsky, Bruins Beat listeners. Have a great rest of your week.